and so also the larger issue as to how the private sector can be involved in developing various sectors involved with that. So I think perhaps if the panel agrees, my suggestion would be that whilst we talked in general terms, I think we can come down to specific sort of tasks which can be addressed, and perhaps one could be that perhaps a working group can be thought of, which will first begin with the basics, begin with the alphabet of our conversation, and harmonize the data, and then from there flesh out the agenda and the directive which was given to all of us at the India-ASEAN Summit, which took place in January here. So thank you very much. I think we have had a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for Ambassador Yogendra Kumar for chairing this session and effectively managing this session with a long list of speakers. We'll now have a tea coffee break, about 10 minutes, and we'll join back at 4:20 for the last session on maritime safety and diplomacy and blue economy, followed by the validity section. Please join back at 4:20 so that we can end the session at the correct time. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think I must have spent some 25-30 years dealing with ASEAN since the early 80s, and therefore it's a particular pleasure for me to meet a number of young scholars, officials, executives from ASEAN countries this afternoon. I think we have had perhaps the most intensive of interactions with ASEAN in the past years, particularly in January this year, when 10 heads of state and government were here in India for the commemorative summit. Well, this session is about maritime safety and diplomacy. Talking about blue economy, I really wonder whether it is like a proverbial elephant. Everyone defines that blue economy in a different way, depending where you touch that elephant. And therefore, I think greater clarity is required, and I'm glad in the previous sessions we have had considerable discussion as well as explanation about what blue economy stands for. There were also discussions about maritime security. I think maritime security today is acquiring a great deal of importance. Also, it is a matter of considerable concern to most countries, particularly India and ASEAN, given the fact that a large number of countries in ASEAN are archipelagic or having long coastline. Even countries like India and China, which for a long time, though they are maritime, they have long coastlines, their foreign policy outlook was more defined by continental policies than maritime policies. So we have today a new dimension of maritime security, which also reflects in the new thinking about India-ASEAN partnership. And in fact, the focus this time in tomorrow's Delhi dialogue is on maritime cooperation. I think this is absolutely appropriate and fitting. Now, in maritime security, you have 2-3 elements one can easily discern. I think one is maritime safety, blue economy, naval power, and so on. I mean, when you talk of blue economy as a prospective side of the economy, which is going to be the future for many countries, the primary requisite will be maritime safety. Because without maritime safety, the blue economy will not be able to really sustain. Because if sustainability is the main criterion for blue economy, it has to have that assurance of maritime safety. And maritime safety can only be ensured if we look after both aspects, the traditional security as well as the non-traditional security. We all know traditional security is primarily state-centric, connected with various threats. It has also dimension of naval power, the strength of the navies of the countries. And the other thing is non-traditional security, which is taking of different dimensions nowadays. You know, whether it is piracy, whether it is drug trafficking, human trafficking, you have also the natural disasters which are becoming very serious in nature and to which both Southeast Asia as well as India are prone to. So we'll have to really look after these two dimensions, the traditional as well as non-traditional security. And in blue economy, you will have again traditional as well as modern. Traditional meaning tourism or industry or fisheries and so on, and modern will be how to explore the oceans for resources which we have so far not been able to really even conceive. But thanks to technology, and we had an excellent demonstration earlier in the afternoon, which where the sweep of technology was displayed in deep sea mining and so on. I think whether it is biotechnology or biopharma technology, or these are the new elements of biotechnology which will be available. So I think the canvas is extremely wide, and to discuss these aspects, I mean, when we talk of maritime safety and diplomacy, diplomacy becomes absolutely critical in the consideration of maritime safety and in general of maritime security, because these issues cannot be handled by only confrontation. You will have to have dialogue, you will have to have cooperation. Without that, I think it cannot be achieved. And fortunately, the oceans are still the only space in the world, apart from outer space, where there are no human boundaries, there are no state boundaries. Once you go beyond the continental shelf, those seas are still available and open. And therefore, I think the scope for discussion, dialogue, and cooperation is still there. The role of diplomacy can be quite important and vital in addressing the problems of blue economy. With these, I would like to request our panelists to please address these questions. We have a very distinguished panel. I'll start with Mr. Jonathan To. He is the Director General in Singapore Foreign Office, who looks after us, the larger region of South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and I think temporarily also European Directorate. So very, very wide charge. He has been a Deputy High Commissioner in Delhi only a few years ago, when I had the pleasure of meeting him very often. And therefore, he brings with him both the Singaporean perspective with a clear insight of India as well. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's always a pleasure to see you again, and it's good to see an old friend on stage together. I've always benefited from your wisdom during my time in Delhi. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to address this session. Like what Ambassador Devereux said, the blue economy is quite a large topic. In fact, I think there's been a lot of traction recently from various international fora on the blue economy, in particular from the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and even through India's particular interest in the blue economy. For Singapore, I mean, we've always been a trading and maritime nation. and our geographical location basically has been very important to our maritime success as a country. And when we talk about oceans and the blue economy, and we look at ASEAN, for example, the Indian Ocean is on the west, and the Pacific Ocean is on the east. And very much having the oceans between us puts ASEAN very much in the center of these two large bodies of water. Basically, 40 years ago, when our first foreign minister talked about the Indian Ocean, he said that one day this ocean would take its place as a vital component in the machinery of world trade and finance. He saw that the Indian Ocean was going to be a very vital part of the world economy in the future. And today, that's pretty much what's happened, with over 90,000 vessels transporting up to 9 billion tons of cargo passing through the Indian Ocean every year. And it's an almost fourfold increase since 1970. In fact, I think many of you have cited statistics about the Indian Ocean seeing over half the world's container traffic shipping through it, a third of the bulk cargo traffic, and 2/3 of global oil shipments go through the ocean. So Singapore as a country, we've always been very keen to explore ways to maximize the potential of the blue economy. And we are a major flag state and coastal state, being one of the top 5 shipping registries in the world. And we are an active member of the International Maritime Organization. And through that, have tried to work towards enhancing capacity building and taking on a role in ensuring shipping safety and security in the shipping lanes. We're also a founding member of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, which India is also a member of, and some other countries here as well. And through this organization, we've been looking very closely at the blue economy. That said, I just want to make 2 brief broad points and hope to contribute to this discussion. First, as we try to chart the path on this blue economy, I think we need to ensure that there is a right framework in place for us to pursue this broad topic. Just last month, Prime Minister Modi was in Singapore, and he was the first Prime Minister to deliver the keynote address at the 17th Shangri-La Dialogue. And he articulated a vision for a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Some major tenets that he talked about were the promotion of free trade, ensuring a rules-based economy, rules-based international order, enhancing connectivity, and also ASEAN as the central regional architecture. This very much aligns with our own maritime interests, which focuses on maintaining an open and inclusive regional architecture to ensure continued flow of trade in our region. In this regard, we appreciate what India has done and its consistent support for rules-based regional architecture, with ASEAN at the center, and the strong support for UNCLOS. Prime Minister Modi also proposed several initiatives for ASEAN-India to collaborate in the maritime domain. We certainly welcome new ideas, and I think the ASEAN officials are discussing this and seeing how we can take these ideas forward. But while we welcome all these new ideas, I think we should also be mindful that the broad overarching framework really should be to adhere to international rule of law and to also work within existing mechanisms first to avoid duplication or setting new norms unnecessarily. So I think we need to look at the lay of the land, look at what we have as we talk about the blue economy, as we talk about safety, as we talk about how we can put in place various suggestions and how we can collaborate better. The second point I just want to raise is also the point about maritime security being a collective effort of the international community, not just for littoral states. And in this regard, we need to support improving maritime domain awareness, how we can collaborate with each other, information sharing. And just on our part from Singapore, we have the Republic of Singapore Navy Information Fusion Center. The IFC basically brings together and analyzes and disseminates maritime information shared by partner navies and maritime agencies. and has linkages to up to 83 agencies across 39 countries. So having such a center will help improve maritime safety and security. And this Information Fusion Center also helps broaden our efforts to build regional capacity so that we create greater awareness amongst the various countries on these maritime safety issues. And in our part of the world, we also have a very busy waterway, the Straits of Malacca. And together with Japan in 2006, we established a regional cooperation agreement on combating piracy and armed robbery against ships in Asia, RECAP, an information sharing center. And this really allows the littoral states to come together with other partners to try to address and tackle the problem of piracy. So right now you have basically Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore as part of this Malacca Straits patrols that help secure the waterways. I understand India is keen to be an observer, to be part of this process, also to get into the sharing process. And I think it's a very encouraging sign to have countries like India want